Aldermen to order on Monday, July 22nd at 7 p.m. here in the Aldermanic Chamber. Prayer will be offered by City Clerk Patricia Pietzu, and Alderwoman at Large Shoshana Kelly will lead us in the pledge to the flag.
Almighty God, we have the high honor and serious duty to manage the affairs of our beloved city. Fill us, O God, with the spirit of unity and understanding, which enables us to face our multiple problems with a serene mind, with justice and charity for all, so that any and all decisions made by us will always be for the betterment and greater happiness of all our fellow citizens. So help us, God. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman O'Brien.
Present.
Alderman Gedge.
Present.
Alderman Harriet Gathright. Alderman Dowd.
Present.
Alderman Clee.
Here.
Alderman Laws.
Here.
Alderman Lopez. Alderman Karen. Here. Alderwoman Kelly. Here. Alderman Jettie.
Here.
Alderwoman Malizi Gola. Alderman Tenza.
Present.
Alderman Schmidt. Here. Alderman Clemmons. Alderman Wilshire.
Here.
We have 11 members present.
I am going to turn the meeting over to the Chair of the Budget Committee, Alderman Dowd.
Okay, this evening we're going to be having a public hearing on R-19-159, authorizing the mayor and the city treasurer issue bonds not to exceed the amount of $1,300,000 for property reevaluation services. Is there someone from the city that would like to come up and explain the ordinance?
Good evening, Chair, members of the Budget Committee. As we all know from last year's management audit report and from the improvement plan that was presented to all of you at the full board in April, this has been an item that has been addressed and brought forward and has the mayor's full support. It is an item that we feel is crucially necessary to deal with our data within the assessing office. This has not happened since 1991. This would be a full measure and list over a 3-year period. There would be 2 attempts and then a third to get into all properties. We are looking at beginning the project in October with a startup meeting between the city and the state DRA. In 2022, a full statistical would finish the project. Now, what's important for people to realize is as these properties are being entered and data is being collected, data corrections to properties occur right away. So this is not that data corrections wait until the end. That is not so. It's just like if our assessors were to go out and to find errors within a property card, we would make those changes right away. So over the 3-year period, there's updates and there's changes to these properties as information is obtained. And then at the end in 2022, you would have a full statistical update. Again, as with any statistical update, full measure and list, a USPAP report would be required to be submitted to the DRA for acceptance. And I'm happy to take any questions.
Questions? Alderman Denza.
So, this full listen measure wouldn't get the city out of, we wouldn't be able to then wait another 5 years to do an assessment. The DRA would require us to do one again within 5 years of this year.
So you would reset the clock, so to speak. So if we did the statistical update in 2022, we are actually a year ahead of what would be required, right? We're actually required in 2023. You would be required to do another one 5 years from 2022.
Follow-up, Alderman Tenzel?
And so just a follow-up, and I think, I'm pretty sure I know the answer to this. The state does not require us to do a full listed measure, correct?
It does not.
Which is why we probably haven't done, why we haven't done one since 1991. And then, according to the state standards, the statistical reevaluation that we just did is sufficient by DRA standards.
Correct.
Okay.
Alderman Laws?
What's the protocol for so you made 2 to 3 attempts? What happens if on the third attempt you still can't enter the property?
So they try to obtain as much data as physically possible. It's a process that's quite similar to what our assessors do. They leave tags, they follow up, and they call. We'll actually have staff that will follow up and make phone calls as well. But at that point, we use whatever data is available to us from looking at GIS and looking at the property from the outside, looking at building permits, any building plans, any data that we have.
Alderman Clee?
Yes, I have just a quick question. So when you're saying that they make 2 attempts and then at the third one you do what you're going to do, during these attempts, will the homeowners know we're going to be coming into this neighborhood during this period of time, or is it just a knock on the door, hi, we're here?
So they're splitting the city into thirds, and we will know what areas we are working on, that they have boots on the ground, so to speak. And we can certainly post that and let people know if that's helpful to residents. I would think it is. I'd want to know.
Follow-up, Alderman Clee?
Yeah, if that's at all possible, just to give people a heads up, because we know what happens with utility companies, knock, knock on your door, and it's not real. So just so that the residents know that these people, so we know what kind of IDs they're going to have and so on. I think that's really important for the safety of our residents. Thank you.
Alderman Jettie?
So what we're here for tonight is the public hearing on the bond, right?
Yes.
And I notice in the, I don't see it in the bond language itself, but in the fiscal note on the bond, it says that the bond would be sold in fiscal year '21. And I'm wondering why is that? Why wouldn't it be sold right away? I understand the interest rates are really good for municipalities right now. Why would we wait until '21 to sell the bond?
Treasurer Fedett, would you like to come up and address that?
Actually, no, but yes. First of all, after the bond gets passed here, a packet has to go out to bond council. That can take up to 60 days. We're selling bonds in October of this year. This just won't be ready. Plus, we don't sell bonds normally until the work is almost already complete. We use our own cash to pay for the work, and then we reimburse ourselves later. The rates will still be good for, I think, a couple more years, the way it looks. So that is the plan anyways. I don't think I could have it ready for the October sale. And we try to sell just once a year because, there's a lot of expenses when you sell.
Treasurer Fedett, would you also explain why it's a 5-year bond?
But there's a state law that allows only up to 5 years for this type of bond. I think it goes back to years ago. I think many communities did these every 5 years. I mean, they don't do it today, but years ago they did. So I think that's why the 5-year max is there.
Thanks. Yes, Alderwoman Kelly?
Thank you. Just a question around the selling of the bond. If we find that things are shifting, could we sell it earlier than 2021? You're saying for a couple of years that the rate might be fine.
Oh, yeah, we could sell it earlier if we thought something was happening with rates, yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Treasurer Fedett? Thank you. Any other questions? Okay.
I
Alderman Clements.
just have one question. So my question is, do we anticipate that by doing this, there's going to be some massive swing one way or the other in what the rates currently are?
So are you asking for the full measure, or are you asking with the statistical update? I mean, presently, we do see property values still rising, right? So we do see that. How much is of a change in value because of the statistical update that's processed in 2022, and how much is actually from the full measure list data collected over the 3-year period? We'll know how much change we see in the data as the years are being processed, at least the first couple. But then you'll see a greater change for those properties that are in the 3rd year of data collection, because that'll be the year that you're also having this statistical update take effect, right? But with homes still rising, and the fact, I think that one of the reasons that we're addressing doing a full measure and list is because it has been so many years since we've done one. It's kind of hard to say what we're going to find from the data collection.
Okay,
All set.
thank you.
Alderman Tenza?
Would you agree with me, though, that this isn't a way for the city to collect more taxes? If anything, it's a way to redistribute how the taxes are collected.
Correct.
And you really don't, do you have a sense of,
It doesn't.
will it be, well, do you have a sense of how that redistribution will take place?
So as far as the statistical update, that's based on sales, right? So that's based on sales with homes year prior. So you're at that point, you'll be looking at, it'll be based on sales from April of 2021 to April 2022. In commercial, they'll actually be using 2 years. This is not the city's attempt to, you don't collect more on taxes. This is a redistribution. Where you're going to see if there have been changes to homes that we are not aware of, those changes will impact those property values. And if the market continues to have increases like we see now, you'll see increases in 2022 based upon those sales.
All set. Alderman Clements?
Yeah, I mean, I think I understand, but I also want to make just the point that, in 2009, we weren't rushing to do one of these. You know what I mean? Because property values at that point dropped tremendously. And it wasn't exactly a priority. So I'm just hoping that we're not looking to do this for the opposite reason of why we wouldn't have done it in 2009. If you can read between the lines.
Yes. Mrs. Kleiner?
So if I may, I mean, one of the things that we did notice in the management audit, and it was one of the recommendations, was it is always the city's best interest to have accurate data. And I think this is why we made it a recommendation of the management audit. We felt pretty strongly that it needed to be done. And no, we're not saying that you want to undertake one every 5 years or every 10 years, but maybe the city looks at that and figures out what it thinks is most reasonable to keep our data and our systems accurate.
Alderman Tenza?
So if someone, and you may have said this before, if someone refuses for the inspector to come into their house, there's nothing the city can do about that?
Other questions? So, question, the bond says an item not to exceed 1.3 million. Are we basing that on a proposal?
We are.
Okay, so
So-
we don't anticipate having to spend any more than the 1.3 million.
So I want to say that when CFO Griffin and I were undertaking the management audit, we asked for a quote, a proposal on this item to get a understanding of what we would be asking the city to undertake. So that was based on February of 2019. I am hopeful that I will not have to come back to you.
Okay, any other questions? Thank you very much. I'll now open the public hearing for testimony. At this point, I'll be listening for testimony in favor. Anyone that wants to speak in favor, please come up to the microphone, state your name and address.
Lori Ortolano, 41 Berkeley Street. A couple of things. I have some concerns about the 4-year time frame on this reevaluation with a listed measure. I would love to see it done in 3 years, certainly not 5, so I was glad to hear tonight it was 4. A couple of my concerns are that the market is running high. We lost 5 points on the equalization ratio last year in a year that we were equalizing to 1. We came down to 94.9%. It's very possible that this year we could lose 10 points on that ratio, and we'll be equalizing property at 85%, maybe 87 after that first year. You know, you'd like to think that the market will correct itself. I hope it does. But if it doesn't and it runs hot, you're going to have properties that are pretty far off. And when you couple it with the miscue in data that hasn't been captured over 30 years, I think you could have some pretty devastating increases, and that concerns me a great deal. I would love to know if this state has any way to phase in high increases on properties. I know other states do when they've done reevaluations and they've seen somebody's property taxes go up a lot, they'll phase it in over 2 or 3 years. I don't know if New Hampshire's ever done anything like that, but I'm not a proponent of seeing property values increase 50 or 100% because of an adjustment. It sort of happened to us, and it's a pretty unpleasant situation, and I wouldn't wish it on anyone else. So that concerns me. Doing it sooner would help take the edge off the market run that we're seeing happening. And I also think that the management audit report didn't do much at all to tell us about the need for a listed measure. What tells you the need for a listed measure would have been a technical audit report. And it's the technical data that kind of speaks to that.
Orlando, could you address just the bond in front of us, if you're in favor? The points
Sure.
that you're stating in favor, and not what might come out of it or anything else, because we have no control over that at the public hearing.
Okay, I was only speaking to what was spoken to here, and I didn't know I couldn't speak to what was spoken to here. So, so I would like to see the bond carried sooner than 4 years. I would like to see the work done in 3 years. For myself, it makes a big difference because I moved into a neighborhood where we have no equity, and waiting 9 years to find it is just a long time to have to wait to get properties in line. You know, it just doesn't seem reasonable for the properties that are completely out of line. So handling the listed measure quicker, I would be a big proponent of it.
Thank you. Anyone else that would like to speak in favor of R 19-159? Seeing none, I will now take testimony in opposition to R 19-159. Seeing none, I will once again open the floor for testimony in favor of R 19-159. Seeing none, I will now open the floor once again to testimony in opposition to R 19-159. Seeing none, Do I have a motion?
Motion to adjourn.
Alderman O'Brien's motion is to adjourn. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We're adjourned at 7:20 PM.